an interesting story about, and this is in the Business Daily on page 3, and how Aga Khan fought attempts by Kenyatta's men to control the nation. And, you know, the story very briefly goes that they were at a function together, that is Jomo Kenyatta, President Jomo Kenyatta and the Aga Khan. And, you know, at this point, he had already talked about, you know, his interest in media and seeing it grow. So Kenyatta then turns to him and says, he had his nephew with him, and he says, "This is my nephew, Mr. Muigai. He's just returned from America, and I was wondering if it was possible to find a position for him in your newspapers." Now, apparently this took him by surprise. He was actually taken aback as the Aga Khan, but very politely said, you know, we will see. He said politely he was sure that it would be possible, but he would have to make inquiries. He didn't, and they say that marked the end. It would have marked the end of independent media in Kenya because he refused. He refused for it to be co-opted in that way. So that's also a very unique angle to say no. It's a unique angle because yes, he wanted to pour into media. He wanted to give Kenyans a voice, an independent voice. But I think also just having that foreshadowing of saying, if we want to build an independent media house, then we have to do it right from the beginning. I'd say that's a bit unique, you know, for his time especially.
It's understanding, like, if your foundation isn't solid, there's nothing else you're doing that's solid. So if you have a Muigai in your paper from the beginning, you don't stand a chance. And that's just the truth.
And this one actually, you know, it goes further and talks about that by the time that the president was seeking to have his nephew to control the newspaper in 1976, the Aga Khan had already given the editors a free hand. And according to the Jerry Loughran, who, you know, was is a Nation Media Group historian, he says that the position that the president had vaguely referenced for Ngengi Muigai was in reality nothing short of the chairmanship of the Nation Printers and Publishers. That's what it was called then. And then there was also Udi Geshaga as well. And Geshaga and Muigai were not satisfied with this meeting. The Aga Khan was scheduled to fly out the next day, but they wanted an immediate announcement. Albert Akirapa, who's a Nation executive and former civil servant, who had been earmarked to take over as the executive chairman, was quoted in the Nation history book saying, you know, there was this attempt by, you know, this, and my mahali ni mupatia kwe chairman.
Imagine that.
Not internship, not chairman. Can we also just take pride in the fact that the Aga Khan, His Highness the Aga Khan, was doing these things at a really young age? I don't know if time worked different in the 50s, but he was 20 when he starts thinking of the Taifa Leo. That to me is such a big, big, big thought to be having at the age of 20. To be thinking, I need independent media. I'm seeing what's happening. I'm seeing the papers that are currently here, and all they're doing is propagating the agenda of Mkoloni.
That kind of.
And what were you thinking at 20?
What were you? That should be a segment. Where were you? And what were you thinking